Alright, folks. Welcome back. 欢迎大家回来。今天是第21天 into day 21. HanziHero is incredibly consistent, expecting about somewhere between an hour, depending if someone triggers short story from not. I do some review to do. It does look like I need to still cover 6 more constructs before we're ready for our Duolingo wrap up. Chinese. I need a couple errors as a start. And yes, if the mic level is slightly lower or higher or a little bit sizzly, apologize for that. Unexpected technical problem. Bound to happen eventually. Although it is been a while since I had a technical problem. Let's see. I wrote yesterday. I wrote people instead of everybody. Right. You'll watch Hanzi for a bit tonight too, since you'll be up a while. All right. You know where to find if you're curious, if you want to come on to the Chinese side of things, hint hint nudge nudge, chuckle chuckle. This was passed on. Oh, I jumped the gun. This is Shu. That's the error I made. Shu. I wrote Kan. I don't want to talk about it. This is Kiku, right? When this shows up, I'm like, oh, it's Kiku. And here's a fun little story. Because I started Chinese with simplified, in my head when I think read, I'm not when I'm thinking read, I'm not thinking this character. This character is Shu for book. So immediately I'm like, oh yeah, it's Kiku. So Kan, I know how that sounds, but when I read it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the Japanese character for Kiku. So then I said, oh, it's read. What is read? Oh, the Chinese word for read is kan. Kan. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a Shu. so I went from kanji to English to Chinese and got it wrong. That's what I mean by sometimes whenever I'm learning Chinese, I think of Japanese first. So immediately I translated the Japanese kanji into English to get the Chinese wrong. Because if I stuck with Chinese, I would know it's shu even for traditional because it's already. But then the reason why I stuck with kanji is because I use simplified. The Chinese simplified character is not this. Shu looks like this, which is very different. This is Shu for this character right here, the traditional character. So, yeah, fun stuff is happening, I tell you. Fun stuff is happening in my head. The forehead moment. Let's see, what else? I keep writing they or people as opposed to others. So that was an error yesterday again. I wrote girl instead of daughter here. Still getting used to this character here. Traditional as well. Arts. Oh, arts was because Now, R2 and these two are related because this is non. It's a tone 3, and this is a silent child. So it's ni, whoops, not ni, R, right? R, Z, right? Just 5. So I was trying to remember. There was one that still carried the non-silent child right here, and by child I'm talking about the character child. And then we screwed this up because it stands for James Bond, and I typed 2 as opposed to the. Hey, and yeah, I made quite a lot of errors yesterday. These two are carryovers. Oh no, I made this error today, yesterday, because I accidentally typed Sun 3. It's Sun, so it's Sun 1. So did I actually mess this up? No, right? Sun. Oh, Sun. Shema. Shrek in the infirmary. What is Shrek in the infirmary doing with what? Shrek is in the infirmary doing what? Oh, Shrek is in the infirmary fighting Slender Man with crosses. That's right. That's exactly what this is. Because Slender Man and crosses are in there. Like, what are you doing, right? Yeah, what are you doing? Why are you fighting Slender Man with crosses? Easy. Alright. So let's get in. Is Japanese closer to Chinese than Korean is to Chinese? Unfortunately, I don't know Korean enough. However, I would probably say Japanese to Chinese is about the same as Korean to Chinese, and possibly the other way too, for one big reason. Because Hanja exists. Now, Korean also has their own separate writing system as well. You know, I don't know how to write it. Their own writing system. I think it was like Han or something like that. I don't Hanjo. I forgot how to write it in English, but this system Hanja is using Chinese characters, so using Hanzi to write Korean. However, Koreans usually, so in terms of writing like this type of thing, it's further away. You would say it's one would reasonably say it's further away. And then when it comes to like pronunciation, they're very definable. All three of them are very definable. So it's really apples and oranges. Japanese sound probably very different from Chinese, and Chinese from Korean, and then. But in terms of writing, there's a relationship between all of them that uses this the same pool of character. And then Korean has their own modernized, a different system that was created for the language, and it looks very, very shockingly dissimilar. And I joke about this yesterday about Korean. Like, here's me pretending how to write Korean. Like, this is like the essence of the Korean modern thing. It has like circles, lines that are constantly spaced from each other, as opposed to like when you look at this is Japanese is same character. It looks something like this, where they have like lines. It's incredibly functional. Like, I was told, at least, I don't know any Korean, like, so So things like this is what I imagine it gives Korean away, like the modern system that they have. I call it a modern system because it's within the last like how long ago? Within the last 400 years? No, no, that's too far back, right? Oh, it's Hangul. Hangul. So this. Oh no, it's more than 300 years. Sorry, it's like 700. Six. Let's see. Let's do some quick math. 600. It's almost 700 years ago. It's almost 700 years ago, but it's far more modern than like it's far more modern than like the Chinese writing system, which goes back thousands of yeah. Actually, Hangul might line up pretty like a one that's younger than this. I guess you could say like mid-century English. Yeah, so this is relatively young. It's almost like approximating English, mid-century English, which is the last iteration. Um, contrast and comparison. How similar is the current Chinese writing system to ancient Chinese writing system? Oof, I have no idea. Probably as close as oh, the characters themselves are still relatively similar, like the actual writing system, but the like the characters themselves, but the writing system, Churn, Malaysian, the person I talk to a lot of, and they have a time. Churn had an exam. Churn is in high school right now in Malaysia, and he has a Chinese literature class, right? And yesterday, by coincidence, yesterday he showed me screenshots of his exam, and I can read the characters, but I have no idea what they say. Even like simple characters like, oh, I see that this is talking about the mountain in the spring, and then this is him. This must be a person's name, and then like they're talking about renting a book and checking a book, but yeah. Yeah. Other than that, it's kind of like Old English, right? When you, oh, but Old English is a little weird. Even despite that, if you can read the words, Old English doesn't so like you kind of know where the words are, but like I don't understand in that way. So comprehension is like non-existent. So even though the characters might seem almost entirely the same. Do you know most of Japanese? Do I know most of about Japanese? I do not. The most I know about is English. When you say Old English, do you mean like Shakespearean time? Uh, when I am very terrible with dates. What were the Shakespearean year? 1500? Oh, that's mid-century. That's mid-century English. Going from Old English to mid-century English. Mid-century English started at 1600. So Shakespeare was like right before mid-century English, which that's like probably the closest time to our the how old is okay, the English that I was talking about is more like Beowulf. when when I was talking to Churn and he was showing me like old Chinese passages because of the exam, um, he was showing something that sounds like something that came from Dynasty, like thousands of years ago. I'm like, what the heck? And yeah, it's hard for me to understand at all. But when I was talking about Old English, usually it predates Shakespeare by like 500 years. This is classic English. So like poems like Beowulf or when was Paradise Lost? Paradise Lost. Oh, Paradise Lost was mid-century. So Paradise Lost is more like post-Shakespearean time. But I think most people who are familiar is probably Shakespeare, slightly before mid-century English. But Beowulf was like the 1000s, like it's 900s to 1000s. And when you look at if you look at a screenshot of what Beowulf looks like, I'm like, what is that even writing? You can make out words like you, them, they, and whatnot. I read a transcribed version of Beowulf back then. Beowulf is probably the oldest thing that I tried to read. The oldest English that I tried to. Also, I don't know if this comes up as a, but what country did your ancestors come? My parents came from China. Yeah, they're Chinese. I'm second gen, so I would be the first. And usually I use a term that most people are okay with, which I refer to myself as I'm an American-born Chinese. So I have all the elements of first generation diaspora. Did my parents teach Chinese? So the thing about diaspora is that usually my parents left because they wanted to seek new opportunities in the United States. So neither of my parents are educated enough to teach. And my parents speak Fujianese at home. So Fujiwa, right? Ngam mong Puntungwa. Puntungwa me ai chuan gong. Uh my parents listen to my parents listened to Mandarin though. So when I was growing up, I listened to Mandarin and Cantonese. Actually, it's hard for me to distinguish when I'm watching like Jackie Chan or something, kung fu movie. It's hard for me to distinguish if if I'm listening to Cantonese or Mandarin a lot of times. They're both intelligible to sense of entertainment. So, uh, like for example, by coincidence, I got a Jackie Chan clip on my YouTube algorithm before I start streaming today, and I'm pretty convinced that it is Cantonese because usually Hong Kong Entertainment that puts these out. So the original language that they were speaking was Cantonese. However, oftentimes most of that content is dubbed over in Mandarin, and you can see it by the subtle difference. Their lip not matching because it's live action, and now since I know a lot more about Mandarin, practicing Mandarin, it's a little bit easier for me to distinguish when I'm not listening to Cantonese. However, in early days, like old school films, they swap between Cantonese and Mandarin very often. Like it goes back and forth a lot. Like scenes and stuff tend to have Cantonese. In fact, a lot of the comedy shows and stuff use Cantonese together. So I do have a background sort of in Chinese, in Mandarin, because I grew up with Mandarin and Cantonese and Mandarin speaking around me and entertainment. So when I'm learning Mandarin, I often make sure people know that the experience might be different because I don't have problems listening to it. I have problems reading because I'm illiterate. I have no, and my parents are largely not readers as well. My mother said that she might have graduated high school. My father did not. And my oldest uncle did not. So they're not, they can't read as well. And then Fujianese is a dialect, and usually it's unintelligible. Most of the dialects in Chinese tend to end up being unintelligible to each other. So, and there's no formal learning or schooling for dialects. Even if I go back to China, it would be tough to find like a class or someone actively teaching. that could be a nationalistic thing. I've never been to China. I don't know how governments do it. The Chinese government behaves very different from the United States. So oftentimes, if there are diaspora in the United States, there's usually some proactive nature of getting in, preserving that ethnicity, that heritage. However, in China, it might be different. I can't really say how they about it. The foreigner's perspective, like people who communicate these things to me, is suggesting that Chinese nationalism is trying to reduce the number of dialects in China because it creates division in the people. So Fujianese, from a foreigner's perspective, is a dialect that is shrinking, right? So there's a chance that if I and the Fujianese people that are here, who like descendants, right, descendants of the Fujianese people, would to preserve Fujianese like as much as they can by blending it with the remainder with Mandarin, that might last longer than the nationalistic Chinese government. So take it with a grain of salt because I am a foreigner. I have never been to China, and the nature of natural languages, they change. And just wondering if the country's language is 1 year in. I'm most interested in all of the above. It's part of my identity, so it's hard to choose a favorite. Like Spanish is part of my identity too. I grew up in the United States, so I've encountered tons of Spanish speakers. So I'm specifically making time for the languages that are part of my life. So none of these are foreign languages per se. Like I know how that sounds. Like they are foreign to me, but they are not something that I go out of my way to interact with. Japanese has been part of my life since I was 5. Cantonese and Mandarin has been part of my life. I was able to hear sounds. English was actually one of the later ones, and English and Spanish was one of the later languages that I started processing. I think my first English sentence much later than my first Fujianese, first Mandarin, like speaking one. And my ear training is far more trained on English since I live in the are there lots of dialects in China? As far as I know, there are over 50 dialects. And those 50 dialects, there are like 7 fairly big dialects, and they're usually unintelligible to you, largely due to the nature of Mandarin. They are unintelligible. So, like, I can illustrate some stuff. Like, just so even to a foreigner, someone who does not know either Chinese will be able to discern the phonetical differences, right? Like, small, right? This is xiao, xiao, nong. Nong sounds like nong for eggs, but dan is eggs, nong is eggs. Small is xiao, small is nong in Fujianese. They're both not related. So like 多 nura, like 很多 like 多少 like how much 多少 nura. So they're not intelligible to each other, even though their origins might be related to like a ancestral origin. Minnan and stuff, or Ming. I don't know how they categorize it, or Hulkin and whatnot. They're entirely unintelligible to each other. So if I speak Fujianese, I like, approached a Mandarin person and speak Fujianese, it would be like 99% unintelligible. Unfortunately, there are words that overlap though. However, they're not intelligible when they're used. Like da. Which da do I mean? Da could be big, da. in Mandarin, but it's usually da, as in tea, not cha in it, which is tea in Mandarin. So I don't know. It gets really, really complicated. You think you think one day you'll learn some Chinese, but I like to get a better grasp on Japanese first. I totally agree, Valentine. Yeah. I hope it becomes an interesting thing because of franchise. Oh yeah, how's your Dynasty Warriors origin experience? That was part of your life as a child? I see, I see. Man, Dynasty Warriors too. I'm almost equally as interested in Chinese culture and history. Yeah, it's unfortunate that it's so hardly accessible because of geopolitics. But maybe in my lifetime it'll be different. I'm a little bit romantic, largely because of the next question that Procon. You know much about Chinese history? I only know as much about Chinese history as a foreigner has access. It seems like one of, if not the richest. Yeah, largely because historically Chinese has the long China, one of the civilizations or collections that have one of the longest written history, right? That's that creates that prevalence of a rich history. Um, China, when it comes to written history or like recorded or orally passed history, China is one of the longest, along with like Egyptian, like things in the Mesopotamia, like Fertile Crescent, all those that preservation. Is one of the longest and most detailed, as opposed to like something like United States, which is it? It's not 400 years yet. Has been. Do you feel a conflict between taking pride in being an American while also taking pride in being Chinese? I do not. Personally, I do not. However, when it comes to, we'll go back to like the whole professionalism thing. When it goes to concerning with others, I do code swapping. So, code swapping people, in my opinion, it's a choice. It's a choice. I participate in code swapping. So when I code swap, it largely normalizes not taking pride in any particular part. So like I behave ironic this might be a little bit weird, but I behave like a Japanese. I behave like a face culture person. So if I'm in the company of Americans, I act appropriately like an American valued person until they want to know about my background. So for example, when you and I are talking, I'll behave something that's reflective of the internet culture most appropriately until I'm asked about my background. So if someone is not curious or even questioning whether my background is American or not, then I don't share it. That's kind of the whole like Chinese and Japanese face culture. If no one asks, they're not interested. And if you're not solicited for information, then you behave as appropriately as possible. Because pride is not the only. It's humility. Humility and humbleness takes precedence. So you act as appropriate as possible in public. And then when someone wants your honest opinion, wait, so you act Chinese or Japanese racist? No, we act appropriately. And just like for full disclosure, monocultural, nationalistic countries are easily the most quote unquote racist because they're standardized. And it's not like, you know, the argument is, let's take a empathy situation. If you're a nationalistic country, most people will behave in a certain way, so you have no need for discrimination. You see what I mean? Like that's a American's perspective on a monocultural country. So I grew up in a country in the United States that is not monoculturally heavy. Like because of my birth, my situation, I do not see myself growing up in a place that is monoculturally dominant. So when you're not in a monocultural environment, you have to discriminate, right? it's very difficult to not discriminate. We're not talking about like racism discrimination. We're talking about the act and principle of discriminating between, hey, you're in Japan now, you're in China now. So if I visit Japan, one must discriminate that you're in Japan. It would be very prideful and ignorant and insensitive and almost reverse racist if you go to a person's country and you bring your culture and you enforce your culture onto that country. So, unlike a lot of misrepresentation online about American pride and nationalism, foreigners have that same perspective as well when they enter the United States. Where, right, if you're strong and your country is really nationalistic, they are very prideful and they have decorums, rules, professionalism, but it's more like appropriateness. And like Japan and China, when they come to the United States, for example, when I meet a Chinese person or Japanese person, usually it's Chinese person, they would try in their nationalistic behavior. It's a double standard because it's a cultural difference. Their behavior would be, okay, I'm in the United States, I must not embarrass myself or my people. So that ends up okay. In the United States, where it's a country filled with non-monocultural environments, you're gonna go over there, and when you go into another country, sometimes you're gonna get varied results because some people say everyone should understand everyone. So for example, there's supposed to be expected leeway in doing what you want as a freedom of expression, right? Freedom of expression. And then doing, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. For myself, I code swap because my parents are Chinese. So I grew under the culture of traditional Chinese. And also outside of my house, outside my family's house, I grew up in American culture. So it's out of convenience and appropriateness that when I go to Japan, I'll behave. I wouldn't have to I don't get culture shocked. For example, there's no culture shock when I go to Japan. When people tell me something about like how Japan is nationalistic and stuff, that's not culture shock to me. When it comes to conversation between like Americans online, other foreign countries where they have strong nationalistic thing, it's like we do this and we don't do that. But Americans do whatever they want, and then that's insulting. So, and then the other way around, as an adaptation of Americans do whatever they want, they are also hyper concerned about doing the consequences of doing whatever they want. Meanwhile, on the monocultural side of things, you don't have to worry about that because the thing that's considered normal most of the time requires no code swapping. You don't have to code swap. At most, the code swapping is going to work and going home. Going to work, going home. That's a code swap too, by the way. That's, or like being professional, being casual, being formal, being casual, right? Talking to a stranger, talking to a friend. That's also a form of code swapping. However, I do code swapping for cultures as well. When I'm around my parents, I quite literally behave differently, interact differently, largely due to the cultural norms of my parents. And when I have my friends who are American, right, multi-generational American, when they're in their company, they will notice that I would act differently, appropriately for my friends. And when they see them, when I interact with my parents, I'm very different, right? Largely because I live in both worlds, or I choose to live in both worlds. That sounds exhausting to a lot of people. Actually, it's quite common for diaspora, people who move to another country, to assimilate wholeheartedly one or the other country. They either reject and be incredibly prideful of their parents' heritage, or they try to and try to project their heritage culture in order to modify their adopted, which is like a Chinese American trying to say, man, Americans are so, white Americans are so ignorant of other immigrants. And then they would push back and where the nature of the American spirit is, where there's constantly a tug and pull in exchange between these. And then others can assimilate American culture and reject their heritage. So that happens very, very often between diaspora. And diaspora in general separates into a mix of these two groups a lot of times. I'm the code swapping kind. So I'm a preservationist. So like I'm more of a preservationist. I love the idea of having both. I enjoy knowing that, appreciating how my parents would have issues with this particular practice, but they can still occupy the same room, right? Like, oh yeah, you know, we don't eat without, they're like, let's use innocent examples. Oh, we don't eat while we talk, or like we don't talk and eat at the same time on the dinner table, or this person should sit down first, and the arrangement of the tables. And here's a more recent one for Western culture. One of our family friend is a French Chinese couple. So when I went there, I was the only one that ate both the French Thanksgiving celebratory meal that this French person wanted to do, and I consumed the Chinese one. The table was split in half. The table was split in half, and the French person chose not to, maybe like eat later or another time, hot pot, 火锅, right? Which is usually the celebratory thing. And the wife decided to exclusively eat that instead of the, is it called? It's a French, oh no, racleur, right? Racleur instead. And so I was drinking wine with my tea. I was eating hot pot with my cheese and meat. So, and I was the only one in that table of 9 that was eating both. So I talked to the French person English because I don't know French, unfortunately. And they were telling me about their ritual in ways to celebrate. And then I switch over and talk to my parents, and my parents would like, they would do the thing where they grab whatever is from the hot pot and they would keep throwing food onto my plate. Meanwhile, the French person would kindly ask like, hey, do you want something? Like, do you want more? Like, they do the passing thing, the ritual that deals with westernized cultures. I do all of that all at once in a household. So whenever there's like a multicultural situation, my parents' side and the Chinese side are very nationalistic. So they stick to what they're used to, what they're doing. And then the French side was the same. And I'm American. You see how that works? Like I was the only American on the table. Like everyone else, they were either French or they were Chinese. So the only American was me. So I sit there and I do both. And I liked it. I mean, and the French person and the Chinese, like my parents said, like you're weird. Like you're the only one that would have eaten this. Like this, the French person said, this is the first time I've ever seen anyone eat like participate in raclette and have hot pot on the same day while celebrating Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving. That was the event. So it was a Chinese group doing a celebratory gathering. They weren't necessarily observing Thanksgiving per se, like in the American norm. And French was not either. French do not do American Thanksgiving. But it was a gathering point to participate in celebrating and sharing a meal. Meanwhile, I was going there because it was American Thanksgiving, because I'm American. and my parents are Chinese, and their parent friend is French, so I wanted to experience all of that. So we did it all at once. It's one of the most common situations in modern American lifestyles. When you sit at a table, like if I hung out with most of my friends, there would be at least 5 cultures in a table of 7. There would be 5 cultures between us. And how do you negotiate that? Each of those people bring a part of their culture to the table, and then that's it. And they can choose to not participate, choose to spend the time together but eat your own things. Like there are times in the modern age of Americans, like in university and stuff. Here's a little slight story. I had like 4. We were gonna hang out. It's like a study group, right? There were 4 students, all 5 of us, including myself, so that's 5 total. We all had different eating preferences because of our background. So what happened was, instead of all going to a singular restaurant, like a singular eating situation, all 5 of us said, let's go and get what we wanted and then all meet up at someone's place and then eat in the presence of each other. And then, share if they wanted to. But generally speaking, it ended up with 5 different culture dishes between 7 people. So, to me, it's a little biased. It's like half and half, because there are different versions of American nationalism, right? Because Americans are quite varied. And for me, I embrace the whole idea of immigration because I'm a product of that. And I love the idea that when you sit down, you're sitting across someone who can exchange something about their culture. It's a social norm. Like, the very most typical thing is to talk about atypical things. That encapsulates American spirit for me. Not that, again, it's a paradox. Not all Americans agree with what I'm saying or what I'm going. I grew up in a little different way, and that's the paradox, because Americans have different opinions, largely because they're all largely very diverse. Yeah, that's why I think mass immigration from conflicting cultures can cause problems. Like in the UK, we have over the years taken in cultures but still have nationalistic ideas. Yeah, exactly. That's it. It's a balance, right? And it causes problems, but I also see it from a fondness perspective, right? It's like the whole baggage, right? It's the entire thing. You can't choose the parts you like about people. You can't choose to divide people up, like their personalities up, right? Say, oh, I only like Japanese people for these particular properties and then forgo the rest. That is myopic. In my opinion, that's narrow-sighted. Like, for example, I can be objective and subjective at the same time. Say, well, when you're being objective, you're not being subjective. When you're being subjective, you're not being objective. The idea is you're code swapping. You're juggling these things. So when diversity increases, you have to juggle more. One of the consequences of that is conflicting values, conflicting problems. But the flip side is innovation, inclusion, different types of problem-solving skills, right? A collective choice in advantages and whatnot. So, for example, this is gonna sound a little bit off, but when a Chinese person wants to break out and learn English, who do you think will have the edge? A person who is surrounded by English speaker who happens to have Chinese parents, or a person who is surrounded by Chinese people who are all learning English? right? Let's make it about language learning, right? So the idea about it is there are pros and cons, right? There are exchanges and stuff for each situation. Nationalism has its pros and cons, and so do diversity. And in the United States, because of all my circumstances and whatnot, I have chosen to work harder. Probably not smarter, but work harder. A lot of people would say, well, the efficient and most pragmatic way, my Chinese parents would say, why are you learning Mandarin? You live in the United States. Most people speak English. And even if you go to China, those people who are very successful will likely speak English, right? That is ironically a pragmatic way of thinking about it that is evident of Chinese culture. You do the most pragmatic thing because it increases your level of success, right? Or chance of success. And yet I'm here learning to read Mandarin where my parents were never incentivized to learn English in a high detail because I'm available. So pragmatically speaking, they don't really need to learn English if I'm around, right? And that's the pragmatism, the hyper pragmatism of Chinese culture. And I can appreciate that. I understand. In fact, it's very much like the internet now. Why bother doing something that is not needed? You do things fast, you get things obligated. So, for example, why learn Chinese while you're learning Japanese? Because I can, and I choose to do so. I don't need to do any of this. It's call it my American subjectivity that makes me want to learn Chinese and Japanese at the same time and see how they're related to each other, as opposed to a nationalistic approach where you compartmentalize it. As in, like, don't get your Chinese mixed up with my Japanese. Get your Japanese mixed up with my English. Um, that doesn't mean other people learn faster. Like, other people can learn faster that way, for their own goals. And for myself, the more together everything is, likely, like, I'm dynamically, it's the behavioral norm. I think immigration in countries can work as long as both cultures are somewhat tolerant to allow the freedom of expression, but there's fundamental conflicting cultures and it usually doesn't work out. I think, to me, that's a very telling indicator that you prefer not to communicate. Like, what I mean by that is I can appreciate that perspective where it's coming from a person who believes that human nature does not change over time. So when things are fundamentally in conflict, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll consistently be in fundamental conflict close to each other. That's kind of like assuming two languages won't change because they're fundamentally different when in the presence of each other. So for example, if Japanese is fundamentally different from English, they have no way of compromising in order to adapt to each other's presence. For me, the results of diversity is that conflict. What I am is the result of conflicting cultures, not because they fundamentally are not malleable to each other. So I'm neither one or the other anymore. I am fundamental compromise of two of them. So, like, iron mixed with lead becomes something else. It's not lead and iron put together and still the same. Or like, it's a compound, not a expectation of a, like, oil and water situation, right? Or you can kind of do the water and oil situation like a dressing, like a salad dressing. You can shake it up, and for a moment, things are mixed up, and then they settle. And then you mix them up again. I still like my salad dressing. If you leave it long enough, they still separate. They still have their separate qualities. But if you mix it up and consume it together, pretty good salad dressing. Both vitriolically mixed apart, but at the same time, bit delicious together. You feel like the view on nationalism is a bit hypocritical if you compare the views on his Europe versus Asia? I can see that. I agree the culture can change and will change while merging, but if one or both of the culture have conflicting aspects that are not tolerant on, for instance with religion, then it can be hard to live together without major social unrest. You make it sound like social unrest and conflict is not a natural part of change. And I disagree with that fundamentally, actually. Not having conflicts mean there are no like how you're expecting change that doesn't that like most change or harmonious change comes without conflict or a lack of tolerance. I guess you're more referring to the ultimatum, like a 0 and 1, but we have to understand that conflict comes on a spectrum. You're comparing like when people have conflict, they have a world war, and that's the only consequence of a lack of tolerance. And I'm saying a lack of tolerance, not a yes and no to tolerance. Tolerance is a spectrum. Not like, oh, I disagree with you, therefore I have no tolerance for that. Rarely thinking on extreme case, I agree with you. If there's an absolute 0 no tolerance because humans somehow are irrationally zeros and ones, then I agree with you. If you particularly view humans as 0 and 1, tolerant or not tolerant, then I agree with you. That's what's the reality of that? That's rarely the reality. Change is best coming from verbal conflict and talking, but it can often lead to physical conflict, but maybe that's necessary for change. Again, necessary, I disagree. Best, I disagree. Often, I agree. But you're saying something that is best and necessary. I disagree with all of that. Largely because my perspective is that it's on the spectrum. Change may come from verbal conflict and talking, and it may lead to physical conflicts that perhaps is sufficient for change, are the words I would use. Because it's on a spectrum. So it's not like a coin flip. It's not the best, not the worst. It's an opinion. And I'm not arguing for the opposite. Yeah, so I agree. I totally agree. I agree with I agree with the extreme case too, Prokal. When you say like an ultimatum, like war, right? War might be necessary for change. That in itself is still true because there are historical events that support that. And then there are all the rest, like what I'm saying is we don't have a world war every time there's a verbal conflict or talking. And I thank goodness that's not the case, right? It's nice to appreciate that sometimes this is my soppy counter argument. I want to normalize the idea that people argue conflict a lot of times. The ones that work out don't get highlighted. They don't get normalized, right? Every argument you solve, when it gets solved, it gets talked about less. And a lot of times on the internet, what dominates the perception, like if you want to make your point, for example, in English, on the internet, when you want to make your point, you pick the most extreme confirmation cases in order to illustrate your point. So when you want to say, oh, diversity leads to conflict, that person would choose an extreme enough example as opposed to the statistical likely example. So for example, oh, it's intolerant, so you have world wars. Like, well, yes, I have to agree with that because it's true. World wars have happened due to intolerance, right? However, 99% of that, outside of this case, problems happen and get resolved and get resolved. most of the time without an occurrence of a war. Right. USA is a weird and unique example of immigration from different cultures as it started as a blank slate. Okay. And then slowly developed over the centuries, but obviously it was mostly dominated by European culture. I like that second part. Okay. Blank slate, but with the European culture's foundations. When I say it from starting from blank slate, you mean, of course, ignoring indigenous Americans, yes, but they weren't really living in the country USA, even though that land. That is also very apt. That's a good distinction. 晚上好，晚上好. I can agree with most of those. I think those are fairly level-headed because there was a complete segregation for all intents and purposes. I mean, like 90 the majority, like 90 to 95% of the cases when it comes to the relationship between at least historically written history accounted for, there was a complete segregation of indigenous Americans, like Native Americans, and the European immigrants, the Puritans, right? The Quakers, Puritan immigrants from largely England or United Kingdom. I actually don't know what was it referred to. I guess it's still the United Kingdom since then. So that's fair. That's fair. And in terms of a blank slate, it would seem like a blank slate when it comes to the immigration of Asian culture as well. But you might be thinking, why do I have a problem with the whole blank slate thing? Largely because the immigrants that are part of a culture, the British like the United Kingdom, they already had interactions with Eastern culture through spice trade. So, whatever the Puritans experienced, if they were to fully segregate, they were still the product of a country that interacted with Eastern culture before it arrived in the United States, where they interacted with indigenous Americans. So, like, if the United Kingdom exercised at the time, I actually don't know a lot about British history, but if they already exercised a level of xenophobia, right? Xenophobia due to the isolationism of the earlier years instead of the globalization, right? This is before the expansion into the quote new world. Then the spice trade has already impacted the relationship with Eastern immigrants and immigrants in general, largely due to the colonial expansion of the British Empire, right? I did take like a loose electoral class on empire building, and generally colonial relationships affected the xenophobic perspective even in the prior to the formation of the United States. Something you always find funny is that it seems on average every single generation think that the younger generation is going in the wrong direction in some way and is better, even though objectively have been becoming better in nearly all categories: medicine, life, etc. That's a really funny thought, and I think I will take a nod to philosophy and understanding the human condition. And human condition is based on a linear timeline, right? And that linear timeline is restricted to biological limitations. And due to the biological limitations, that cycle is not without coincidences. I'm not necessarily saying it's strictly causal, but it is corollary. A person goes through a specific type of life cycle. Experiences and knowledge are not communicative in terms of human empathy, right? So you cannot, while one can become incredibly knowledgeable, they are not wise. And wisdom comes with the lifespan of a person. So naturally, when you keep thinking about like recurring sentiments, like sentimentalization, like the subjective nature of humans, so that deals with feelings, posterity, sentimentalism, in general, it comes at life cycle because the biological life cycle of a human being recurs over time. At least that would be my reasonable evolutionary perspective or like biological perspective at the interface of philosophy and psychology, right? And no matter how much I know about war, right? No matter how much I learn about World War II, I cannot acquire the emotional wisdom and subjective human condition of my predecessors. That you can learn a lot about war and try to vicariously feel a lot about war, tolerance, medicine, the impact of like smallpox and whatnot. Unfortunately, humans do not have contiguous, transferable element of the most irrational part of human behavior, which is feelings and memories, right? Learning things is objective in a sense that it is almost not human. It does not connect with the human spirit as much as experiencing them. So when we think about war and think about like, oh, which generation is correct and whatnot, those are sentimental. They're connected with experiences, regardless of knowledge or not. Like you can learn a lot about what feels good, but you can only experience what feels good. So over time, it will continuously wrap around. There will be a younger generation who has less wisdom, and an older generation, and an average generation, you know, between the two. So generationally, to understand the non-transformative baggage of the human condition is subjectivity cannot be passed down. Like, at least biologically in any way. So cross fingers, right? And hear me out. I've gone through all the stages, like the current stages that I thought I would never go through, right? Regardless of how maybe I'm intelligent-ish. Like some people might say I have some self-awareness, like some level of self-awareness, and I'm fairly educated. All of that did not change or replace the wisdom from growing older and experiencing things. So my perspective still encountered most of the other perspectives. I look back on my old self, and that is still consistent with human subjectivity. Largely because no matter how old I get, I can no longer ever pass on my human subjectivity. It's not transferable, right? And just imagine that though. Think about science fiction. There's a lot of great written science fiction about what happens if someone lived long enough to accumulate that subjectivity. What would that human be like? And then you can, brainstorm a lot. There's various versions. If you watch anime, there's plenty of versions of that. If you watch Western science fiction, there's plenty of nightmare scenarios you can think about. Are humans biologically conditioned to accrue sentimentalism or constantly go through a looping cycle? Carbon had a really fun take on this, where a human consciousness is passed on due to an invention that allows that consciousness to be removed into new biological vesicles, right? And those persons become nihilist. They become abusive nihilists because they believe they are always right, because they have the cumulative subconscious knowledge, including the subjectivity of living that long. So the rich will always be rich because they will always be in an advantage and they will always be correct, right? So that's a crazy kind of thinking when we think about, it's funny how like every single generation repeats like the same cycle. What if they did? Star Trek did a lot of things like that, like comparing a theoretical immortal race with like an actual alien immortal, like figurative immortal race. Tolkien, like Western fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, also did that. Elves are immortal. Humans have the shortest lifespan, and dwarves are the intermediate hypothetical, right? And they compared hypothetically what would happen if you're a race, elves, that live for a very long time. What would their politics and their like attitude and stuff regarding like younger generation, older generation. Well, they don't talk about that. They're immortal. so, so it's a really fun topic, and I like reading fantasy and science fiction for that. Anime does it really well too. Like, hypothetically, what if you get a lifetime of baggage and generations never turn over? Like, your kids, what if your kids inherited all of your emotional sensitivity as they are born? I think the kids' minds would honestly, like the way biological restraints are happening, right? We have a lot of written history, lots of literature, art, and stuff, and yet literature, art cycles. It constantly cycles, especially in the age of the internet. Look at how often things cycle now. It actually cycles within 10 years of each other. So I always, I love this. I want to normalize, but over time, since I'm grown older, I've gotten the opportunity to meet and talk with people who have grown older in the presence of the internet. Now, the internet has made information so rapidly available that cycling of information like subjectivity, aesthetic choice, right, entertainment cycles so much more often in one's lifetime. So now I've met 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds who are complaining or like find like lack of novelty in when things get recycled. Games get remade every 10 years, at least. Movies, concepts get remade every 10 years. Trends get recycled every so often. And I say 10 years, but I'm thinking more like 13 to 14 years. What does that sound like? It's a generational change. So with every new generation, there's going to be an iteration for educating the new generation about the sentimentalism, feelings, and stuff by witnessing and experiencing it. So whenever someone tells me, an older person who maybe grew up on the internet as opposed to growing up before the internet, for me, when I see someone complaining like, oh yeah, I've seen this all before. It's basically Resident Evil remade. I mean, I like the original and now they're just remaking it for the new generation. It's like, yeah, but think about it this way, my guy. You've lived long enough for the intellectual cycle of biological human behavior. You live long enough now, like, and then you'll continue to live long enough. Like, human life is expanding, right? Like, the average lifespan is increasing. So you will live more life cycles in the future, and you will see the repeat of sentimentalism and subjective opinion on creativity, politics, religion, that kind of thing go through cycles generationally. So over time, though, for me, I'd like to encourage other people that you are more than welcome as an older person, a more experienced person, to either embrace originality, traditionalism, right, and then reject all the new things. That's one side of the argument. Or you can embrace something similar to me, where I try to empathize with the new generation by trying to connect to them, because I like kids. I like helping kids and growing up, right? So I would love to raise a child of my own, and in order to do that, I continuously embrace redoing things as though like they're going on, so to form a connection with the new generation. That does involve learning a language again. That does involve watching Dragon Ball Z remade for the 4th generation, and Power Rangers for the Gen Alpha, and so on. So maybe that's considered wisdom, but for me, I choose more to live in harmony with the whole cycling. That comes, in my opinion, with the appreciation of the human condition. However, other people live perfectly happy by being the "get off my lawn, kids," and "back in my day, this was the golden age. Back in my day, this was..." Yeah, so I totally understand the whole thing about on average, every single generation thinks that the younger generation is going in the wrong direction. And when I say every single generation, that excludes me on average. So I'm an outlier. And I would say this is related to the very first lots of first questions you asked. I'm a person who's born out of time, out of place in terms of cultural backing and cultural backgrounds. I discovered American history in a different part of my time, and I discovered Chinese culture, Japanese culture in a different part of my life, right? So, one of the funny illustrations is Zhao, who's a Chinese student that's residing in the United States, and then Chern is a Malaysian Chinese person. We had a lot of conversations. I've been extracting like, oh yeah, okay, that's interesting. And whenever I explain things from my perspective, it's different. It's like, yeah, we belong to two different generations, like two generationally gapped cultures, excuse me. Like the difference between someone moving from a culture to a culture, having been like lived in that, so they're generationally a different generation when they're living in China and then coming to the United States, and I was born in the United States and looking out on the lens of that. So, and this discussion is what makes it, this is what to me, this is what I live for. I love talking about these things because humans are weird, in the most wholesome way possible. I embrace the human condition for its ups and downs, like human condition as a whole, as opposed to rejecting the things you don't like about the human condition and only embracing the things you want in the human, right? What comes with constant innovation and iteration and reinventing the wheel comes with also the adult generation always thinking the younger generation is going in the wrong direction. And then one day that younger generation will think that the newer generation is going in the wrong direction. And then it constantly propels a self-feeding conflict that propels the human nature forward, right? Which is really cool, at least in my opinion. It looks, I'm stealing some plots from science fiction, but I got that knowledge from my predecessors. So I basically described like 3 or 4 very, very popular science fiction shows that run like 6 or 7 seasons long. the the concepts behind them. The opium trade was the biggest change in societal views between UK and Asia. Yeah, definitely. The opioid stuff, opium. Like the quote, strong man creates good times create weak men, weak create bad times create strong men. Yeah, cycle. You're very glad England has a long and rich love is written in the first century. Have you watched the anime? I don't know if you watch anime, Procol, but or have you watched the show The Last Kingdom? And or watch the anime Vinland Saga? I think that would be a very apt, fun little second foray into other different lenses into that the period, in a different period, and this was the period between the colonial conflict between the English, the current English that time, the England's unification into the United Kingdom, and the Norwegian, the Scandinavian conflict with the Danish and Nordic folks. You've watched Vinland Saga, but not The Last Kingdom. The Last Kingdom is easily, in my opinion, one of the more like longer running. I think it's one of the longest running series that deals with a different aspect, the more political intrigue between the unification of England and the Nordic conflict. And I really liked it. And I think it concluded, but I didn't watch the last season. The last 2 seasons. It went on a hiatus because of the writer's strike and whatnot. But it is a wonderful show when you specifically to relate to long history, talking about the invasion and whatnot. I think that period with the establishment and unification of England while trying to. Speaking of Nordic, Sub-Zero is Norwegian, by the way, which is pivotal in this conflict. Norway, what is now Denmark, I suppose, like the Danish and the different Nordic, and then sometimes Iceland, but not really. It's more like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and England. So pretty cool. I think it's really neat. The history. Oh, I'll have to check this out afterwards. After we start on our lessons. This is a TikTok showing older generations blaming younger. Oh yeah. I can imagine. I'll check it out and tell you the next time. You watch Luminous Saga, but not The Last Kingdom. It's a really long running series. Actually, how long? You know, I should really finish. Yeah, and it's a British show, right? It's BBC, so at least I think it was on readily available in UK. I think it's included. No, I think the 5th season is going to happen. I think it's still going. Oh no, it's over. It's over. Oh yeah, I didn't watch the last season when it got acquired by Netflix. Yeah, the last couple seasons when it swapped over from BBC to Netflix. So it's 5 seasons long. It's a great show. I really like that. That's where I started getting very interested in the post Britannia period, and then the Nordic and English conflict. I think Age of Empires did a couple of things in that too when I was playing way early, playing Age of the Nordic and English conflict. Obviously, Americans are not in, like the United States are not in the conversation yet. So, this is well before that. Because that is still a figment. It's still like this awful wasteland. Like Vinland Saga basically described Vinland like it was the new world, and that's kind of the illusion that they were going, that the new world was the thing. But I don't know if they were referring to Greenland actually. Really neat. Oh, there's Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero is my no pressure, but Sub-Zero is my representative for all of Norway. So you can ask Sub-Zero as a representation of all of Norway. I'm kidding, but he is my portal to. I typically like, hey, Sub-Zero, explain this Nordic observation, please. Oh, nice. You know a fair bit about indigenous English Celtic people and how they changed when the Germanic tribes came over. Yeah, with the Anglo and Saxons. Yeah, Anglo-Saxon conflicts and whatnot. It seems to cover from 800 to 1000, which is an interesting time period. So yeah, I want to know what you think about it. Yeah, 1066 is a well-known day for England. Yep. William the Conqueror. Yep. William the Conqueror. Also, yeah, he wasn't always called William the Conqueror, right? It was more of a crusade for a while, like for Christianity or like Anglican nature. There was a lot of center conflict in terms of religion, right? Like the ordained rulers and nobility and establishment of nobility. It was such a fascinating time. Like, it was a time where you had two different types of people, where one are not settlers, they're invaders, like solely invaders, and then one were settlers, you know, right? Nowadays, people like post this is often an invasion for settlement, but you had this really interesting interaction between lifestyles. You guys don't have jam on the side. He should be known as William the Stinky Frenchman. He got lucky against the last England king. Yeah, Harold Godwinson. Yeah, all these names are so like This show does cover quite a lot of things like that, and it's a blend. The perspective is from the Nordic, sort of. Oh no, it's like kind of a mix. It's not like Vinland Saga where it's almost entirely from a Nordic perspective. It's a blend. Like the person that you follow is a mix. They're a mix of mixed heritage. So it makes the premise very provocative, like incredibly provocative, like someone who's straddling between two worlds that are colliding together. And I'm a sucker. I mean, I'm a sucker for multicultural, even if it's to bend some dramatics, if you know what I mean. Like, it's probably obvious now that I'm pretty biased when it comes to someone having to code swap and negotiate, right? The main character in the Last Kingdom have to code swap constantly to maintain his lineage and his like success. He is constantly in a self conflict, and I love that. And Vinland Saga kind of tackled that too, in a more of a religious and cross cultural way. Like the characters had to constantly crosstalk between two conflicting things. The reason why I brought them up is because you brought it up about like tolerance, right? Tolerance, cross cultural. There are fundamental no tolerance situations. One of them is probably the depiction of early Nordic invasions and the English, Anglicanized perspective, right? And then even Vinland Saga even touched a little bit on the Welsh thing, Britannia and whatnot. So pretty neat. Star Trek does this too, only involves space and the future. So I like plugging Star Trek a lot, but science fiction plug this all the time, and then Western fantasy plug this all the time. You just switch out the culture and stuff for elves and dwarves and space aliens. Okay, that's enough digression for today. I like talking about this, so definitely feel free. You think us English should invade France so that we're even? It doesn't matter. So that's a your thing. Oh boy, joke. I can't tell you how many times shows like that ends with the idea like it was 1,000 years ago. We don't even know of that war. It goes back to the whole human thing, right? The sentimentalism. Like humans go through cycles of empathy and wisdom because imagine if that carried over. Like, hear me out. In that situation, imagine if human emotional baggage persisted from generation to generation. Would planet Earth still be around right now? Let's just think about it for a moment, right? It's hard to theorize because you can have science fiction that go either way. The world blows up, or somehow humans reach a singularity, right? And then they reach a singularity, so they reach utopian thought. But basically, every human becomes the same, as in like, oh yeah, they all think the same. They all feel emotionally convergent onto one like mind, right? But it can't happen if humans don't live long enough to emotionally capture all the emotional baggage because they reset. When we have children, or when people decide to have children, the children do not carry the watermark of all of their emotional baggage. They try to transfer some of that, maybe intentionally or unintentionally. However, it's only partial. Is that good or bad? That desirable or not? Like, because if you put all the conflicts, right? One last thing. It's a little pessimistic, but about human condition. One human condition that I say is very consistent, and a lot of people would agree, is that emotional upheaval and negativity is the most vivid and visceral experience that a human accumulates over time. Now, if we accept this premise of human condition, right, then hypothetically, if a person persists and are able to transfer their sentimental human baggage, the thing that will escalate over time disproportionately with everything else is the emotional negative sentiment, to an extraordinary degree that it may actually outpace human benevolence, right? So, given that premise, if humans continue down the line of persistence in order that eventually their tolerance would be to nothing but themselves. So, if we imagine that scenario, then eventually world conflict will self-destruct, right? So one could even argue the reset button might be a blessing in disguise, but that's like cherry picking particular fundamentals of humans. The idea of all of these things fitting together is holistic. So the whole resetting thing in our behaviors now is an adaptation. So chicken or the egg question, right? Is our behavior a reflection of our biological limitations, or the biological limitations is what that conditioned our cycle of maybe self-destructive nature, then benevolence, then self-destructive nature, then benevolence? It's a really cool philosophical question to talk about, which I don't think it will change anytime soon, because I don't remember people becoming immortal anytime soon. Hey, pretty cool. Maybe the future will have that have that answer. Speaking of ancient history, in a beach near me, there's a footprint in some kind of clay that dates about 900,000 years ago. Wow. Yeah, with all the conflict, literally every type of person I've been centuries, if emotional baggage is held onto there's no way this species could be alive. Yeah. So I think it's a chicken or the egg question. However, you can honestly imagine how terrifying it would be to be born in the world and suddenly you get your parents' emotional baggage. Like, that sounds it could work the other way around. Like, imagine if that's so scary, those people get eliminated, right? Like, you see what I mean? So what if now there's self-checks? We can think of self-checks. What if the people who are very emotionally baggage, who keeps passing on their emotional baggage to their offspring, those people become self-destructive? But in the meantime, there are other people who haven't reached that critical mass yet, right? So ultimately, policy and species preservation will take hold. And then you start eliminating people with emotional baggage. And what would you do? You would condition yourself to try to reduce emotional baggage as a way to create sustainable generations prior. And then it can become a utopia. You don't know, right? Because humans are adaptive. So it's so difficult to predict the future in a hypothetical situation when you have to consider what would humans do in the meantime. You know what I mean? Like, in the meantime, it's very, very clear what the results are oftentimes when you reduce it to the idea that humans don't change as things are changing, right? So we're assuming that humans do nothing about observing increased emotional baggage as leading to self-destructive nature. But what I could kind of see is younger, more apt people eliminating or secluding the dangerous people, right? You can see self-regulation, right? There's so many ways to go about this. But ultimately, I do believe in human nature to self-preserve themselves. So when you think of all these crazy situations and hypotheticals, I think humans adapt along the way. So at some point, you could imagine a worst case scenario where, hey, here's a asynchronization. Yeah, emotional baggage exponential scaling. So what would happen is, what if this is crazy. I would love to see a science fiction show about this. Entertain the idea that humans present religious, traditional values of eliminating themselves when they reach a hypercritical moment of emotional instability. Star Trek did something similar to that. So I'm stealing ideas. It's not like there aren't shows about this, but there are so many Star Trek themes. Like, one of the themes was you bumped into a very advanced alien race, and the humans needed, the human utopian society, because they're from a utopian society, needed to recruit this expert from this alien species to contain a supernova to create a new sun for their planet, right? But this person came on and he's about to turn 60. And in their culture, when a person turns 60, regardless of how healthy they are to voluntarily die for their community, because in their line, when you get too old, it is a peaceful send-off. But in this conflict, that person did not finish and their project with the human explorers, you know, like Patrick Stewart and co. And due to the interaction with the human culture, this person wanted to complete their legacy, but in turn violated the culture of that alien race, right? And you can kind of see, what if that emotional baggage becomes a critical moment? So then you can create a religious ceremony or a traditional ceremony in which to benefit the rest of the human colony. One, when they show signs of what we'll call it like emotional crises, emotional catastrophic crises, they can create a ceremonial sacrifice, right? Someone who choose like, I don't want to hurt my family anymore. Like, we have too many generations now. So this person voluntarily choose to sacrifice their lineage because emotional crises can end, like, be a danger to the human species, right? So many fantastic ideas. By the way, that TikTok you're saying goes back to quotes from 4th century BC. Alright. So it's funny how these things persist and will, like, yeah, unless some, you know, there's of course there's a possibility, that distinct possibility, sudden paradigm shift in human consciousness or singularity. That's probably not going to happen now. But it's so interesting looking back. History has. Also, let me know if I'm asking or chatting too much, so it gets overwhelming. No. I do have to finish my lesson now. You can always collect a lot of topics. I have explored lots and lots of topics. I do this on my free time, largely because I don't have a professional job anymore, right? So what do I do when I'm not streaming or talking? I think about it. It's fun to talk about because people can find it really, and then it's related to entertainment, science fiction, fantasy, future poison. Probably try to find a topical relation to it. All right, now that said, I'm heated. Things are fine. Do our lesson. I don't know if you share this, but it does annoy me when thinking about the fact that a lot of history is lost and that back in time. Yeah, it can be frustrating. Curiosity is both a blessing and a bane, if you know what I mean. One that likes to consume and be knowing is also revealing paradoxically at when one doesn't know, right? The more you know, the more you desire to know what you don't know, and that becomes a permanent fixture of, like, 99.99% of all information, because we only occupy less than 0.0000001 of the entire universe lifespan, or even Earth for that matter. mortality is such a butt, isn't it? Star Trek. I don't know if you ever watched Star Trek. It it's not for everyone, but so much of the stuff we talk about, and it touched upon like 5% of Star Trek's hypothetical. You have to be really, really into people standing around talking about these, as opposed to like, I don't know, pew pew stuff. But you would have to be really, really into exploring the human condition projected in as many possible ways as possible when it comes to Star Trek. All right. Get on our last. Thank you again. We have plenty of time for future discussion. Plenty of time for future. Being alone. Meanwhile, Sub-Zero is just sitting.
回来
What the heck, Sub-Zero? Aren't you gonna contribute to this? Okay. 回来. 回来. Yeah, to come back. That makes sense. To return, to come. To come, to return. Somewhere you come from where you were originally. I'm coding. You're coding in the background. Oh. Yeah, I've heard a way of imagining it. Held out your arms and length from the top of your tip to the other arm fingertip. Earth's history, human civilization of your name. Yeah. Oh no. You know, save it, bank it. Bank these ruminations. I had this mania. It's great to have one or two of these conversations every. I kind of make space. I make room. There was another analogy like that. Like, if this was the size of this, then this is the size of the. I know. Remember that my mic, I have technical issues with my mic right now. It's not hitting a threshold hard enough for it, and it does cut out because I boosted it. Yeah, I had to boost the volume because somehow I think the diode is dying. Something about the diode is dying. So the gain is 20% boosted, and then it's like the input is increased by 20%. So it's gonna cut out every peak and all that. My original plan was to finish my lessons as soon as possible so I can go and troubleshoot it. That didn't happen. Anyways, it's gonna be a technical thing. We'll see if I can resuscitate my mic some way. Yeah, I anticipate it. Thank you though. Thank you for confirming my suspicions. I actually had no way of confirming because Sub-Zero is busy coding. I'm kidding. I'm gonna blame Sub-Zero for everything. Okay. 我12月 something 会 What could that look like? Hiro? Yeah, it does look like Hiro. Because this is low? No. I don't know what that is. 会回来 Oh my gosh, 会
我12月底会回来
你会回来会 This is how you 会 I know, that's a boomer joke at this point. Did anyone remember 会 as in like laughing and chuckling? 会 How long ago was that? Was that like 6 years in internet time? That's like forever. 他什么之后他什么以后会回来
他什么时候会回来
会回来 Alright. Yeah.
回来 上午，
上午. Yep. If it's above noon, it's the morning. Although I usually think of it as the position of the sun. Yeah. The time in the day flows downward. The top of the day is morning. Okay. An interesting way to look at it. Top of the day, what was it? Top of the morning to ya. Sorry, that's as generic and offensive, unintentionally offensive I can get about British culture. Sorry. I apologize in advance. But when I was thinking of top of the morning, I was thinking of some like BBC show. I don't think I've ever uttered those words in like an actual conversation. Top of the, but that it would be very apt in remembering 上午, top of the morning. Here's some example. Okay, so let's go. 我上午去上班。
我上午去上班。
今天上午有太清。
今天上午有太阳。
Oh, yang? Oh, yeah, that is. Oh, wow, that's yang. Oh, yeah, 太阳. Oh my gosh, that's sun. Well, it's related to the sun. 太阳. Oh, that makes so much sense that this is 太阳. 他上午吃了在行。
他上午吃了早餐。
早餐? Oh, I just took this character, but okay, 餐, so it is different. 吃了早餐。
他上午吃了早餐。
早餐。上午11中 I don't know.
上午11点。
Oh, that's DN? Oh my gosh, I should have guessed that's DN because of the right thing. Oh, okay. 11点. Okay, 11. Fair enough. 11 o'clock. 上午
中间
okay, in the middle. 中间 refers to middle interval. Yes, middle. Middle interval is still middle. 我住在城市的中间。
我住在城市的中间。
对，他在中间。Okay. Street. Something. It's like something 街道。
街道中间。
Yeah, 街道中间。I set the tone incorrectly because I was like asking a question to my 街道中间。街 is the same and 道 is the same. Yes, 街道. They're both the same, I think. No, actually, this might be different. But Japanese is, or like this character in Japanese. These, and this is miti, right? Miti in Japanese, which is street or street. It can be street. So Japanese to the rescue, and actually, it was indoor. Chinese.
中间。出生。
出生. Oh, 出生. Oh, that's kind of cute. to exit birth, like to exit, like to to become to be born. That makes so much sense. Like I can't even describe it in any other way. That's literally like to be born. 出生 sheng is used in Japanese. Sheng, this is u, like uma, umareru, to be born. Let's see. Yeah, to exit the womb and begin life. Yeah, to be born. 他出生在美国。他妹妹昨天出生了。对，what the 他1999他1999年出生。
他1999年出生。
1999年出生。Okay. You have to say all the numbers separately. It's not 1999. You don't say like 1999年. You say 1999. Actually, it's shorter instead of saying 1999. Like the year 1999. You say the year 1999. Which is funny. I think it's really funny. If you don't agree with me, you're wrong. I'm kidding.
出生有用。
有用 yes 有用。useful. Hey, 有用 is also used for apps, right? Isn't this still 有用? Right? Oh no. 游泳城市 Nah. Could have sworn 游泳 could be used for apps as oh, okay. There are many. Dang. TikTok auto plays when you refocus onto the screen. That's an interesting design choice. Okay. You look familiar. And I don't know. Oh, 读? Is that 读? 读中文? Maybe not. Yeah, it could be. 读中文很有用. Oh, you know what 游泳 reminds me of? 游泳 reminds me of swimming. That's what I was thinking. 游泳. Not two different characters, but still 游泳. If you don't have enough context, oh boy, if you're not reading this without enough context, dude, you could be saying learning Chinese is very swimming.
懂中文很有用。
懂 yeah,看懂 like yeah, to understand. Yeah, 懂. What am I? I'm thinking of a common phrase, but it's not coming to me. It'll probably come to me. Okay, 懂中文很有用。这个什么 website? Is that like who? Where? I don't know. 非常有用。
这个网站非常有用。
网站。
这个网站非常有用。这个网站非常有用。
I don't know. hard for me to make out the initial on. That's fine. We'll get it eventually, right? 这个公之 kind of looks like 之公之很有用。
这个工具很有用。
Oh, it's 之 not 之 Okay. It looks like a 之 but without the cap. But if you put the, I guess when you remove the cap, it becomes the 之. That's a coincidence. I didn't know how to say website. In fact, if I say this to my parents, they probably don't know what I'm talking about. This predates the internet for them. I like said email in Mandarin and they didn't know. They kind of guessed it was they say email. So whenever I say email, they say email. Email. Right? Me e-l. Oh, might be not as common syllable. Like how do you do what do you call those phonetic things?
有用。
用. It's so crazy. Oh. 有用. Oh yeah. Too long. 有用. 有用. Okay. 我
回来。有用。
上午。
上午。
中间。
中间。出生。
whoops. 出生。Let's go. A cup. 杯子。Let me guess. A silent child holding a cup. Okay, good. 杯子。杯子 got smashed. I don't know how to say smash. 杯子 smash 了。
杯子砸了。
砸了。杯子 smash 了。That is something I would say to my parents though. That's how I sound most of Fujianese. Like you know, 这杯子 smash 了。这个杯子 smash 了。what was this?
杯子砸了。
砸了。杯子杯子里的水。杯子里的水。
杯子里的水。
里的水。Oh wow, that was very short. 杯子。
杯子。进来。
进来。Okay, please come in. 进来。请进来。Please come in. 我呢？ Oh no. Just. What is just? I know this character. I mean, it's a traditional character, but 我 got it.
我刚进来。
Dang it. 我刚进来。instead of 刚 ngoài giả probably 假 instead of 刚。
我刚进来。
我假见你了。我假见你。Yeah, 我假见你。 What is this? 外面外面很冷，外面很冷，快进来。Hold outside, quickly come in.
外面很冷，快进来。
很冷，快进来。啊，哎，外面很冷，快进来。Right? It's quickly now. I'm thinking of the Harry Potter scene where they were chaperoning around the like whatever that staircase place is, and then they're like, quickly now, hurry, come on, quickly now. Like chaperoning them to their like dormitories, and they just say quickly now, come. Although I do hear a lot of it's like 快点进来 like 进来 is like constantly repeating the action. 你可以进来帮助吗？ No. Something one 忙 not 忙 no 帮 oh yeah that's 帮忙吗？你可以进来帮忙吗？
你可以进来帮忙吗？
Okay. I still find it so rewarding to read random sentences and guessing at the characters. It feels like yesterday when I couldn't read a single character in Chinese. But I recognize those characters in Japanese. I couldn't read a single Chinese character. And now it's just like the best thing to do ever.
进来。中午。
Okay. Makes sense. Middle of the noon is noon. Right? 中午 Right, 中午我每天中午在家吃午饭 No 午间 Wait, what was it? Was it like 间？
我每天中午在家吃午餐。
餐 Oh my god. And 餐 And so oh man, that's the normal word I would use. 餐 instead of 饭. 餐 is what I would hear more often. And then, I don't know why I'm not remembering. I've gotten so used to saying 午饭. 餐中午的太阳很 strong. That's totally strong because of Japanese, but I don't know how to say strong. 厉害
中午的太阳很强烈。
Oh, 强烈 Oh no, that's not even close. I didn't like I don't know characters.
中午的太阳很强烈。
强烈 Oh, I get the liam part. Then that's gotta be strong, but because of 強い强烈。
中午的太阳很强烈。
中午我吃了一个汉堡
中午我吃了一个汉堡。
汉堡 Oh yeah. This is 4?
中午我吃了一个汉堡。
Oh, it's 4 汉堡 I thought it might have been 汉堡 So it's 韩国 or 韩国 Oh no, yeah. My prototypic for Han is oh no, wait, this might be a different Han, isn't it? 汉堡包 Yeah, it was 汉堡。
中午我吃了一个汉堡。
Yeah, hanbao. Okay, all right. I haven't said hanbao bao in a while. That's like one of the first food items you get in Duolingo. Oh, wait. Wait. The heck? Did I typo? I could have.
中午
I must have typoed. I sworn I typed 中午. Probably not. Noon.
再生
Daisheng, yeah, to be reborn again. Again plus birth, life, be born again. Yeah. 人死不能在中哦在生哦 people cannot 人死不能再生他在something 难他在 something 难 I think that's none. Different none. None. Out. After. Wall. Wall 在生了。
他在灾难后再生了。
后那后后。
他在灾难后再生了。
他在 what？
他在灾难后再生了。
在 to 他在灾难后再生了。
他在灾难后再生了。
I guess. Jesus. Oh boy. I don't know what that is. Is it a simplification of so if it's that then chi? No, that doesn't make sense. Oh yeah, ji. Ji qian. Oh, that kind of looks like fresh. Ji qian, right? Qian as in very fresh. 新鲜 or 新鲜 or like 举鲜 oh I don't know something what the heck is this why is it written this way 再次再相 that's probably 次 yeah 再次再相
耶稣将再次再生。
Yes
耶稣将再次再生。
耶稣是 what
耶稣将再次再生。
降耶稣在降 oh I see the 降耶稣Really 耶稣在耶稣将再次再相
再生看来
seems resembles look it seems yeah seems like 看来to look at something the way appearance comes to you is how it seems 这个人看来看来要不下雨了不要下雨了看来要下雨了看来他很忙
看来他很忙
correct tone the first
看来
All right. Lots and lots of vocabulary. Love it.
杯子、中午、进来、看来、再生、
Okay. Next
车
one.
上、
车上 the car. No, fair enough. And they're probably gonna give us 上车 as well, the reverse, which is get into it, right? Probably. 车上 position comes second, and then action goes the other way. What was this? When you are in the car, you sit above the car seat. Okay. 他喜欢车上看书。Okay. Yep. 我在车上。车上有很多人。我
车上。中文
okay. 中文 literature of the middle country, the center country of the world, Chinese language. 中国 there's a lot of historical prevalence. 中 being the middle, and 中国 middle world. 你在学 is that 学？你在学中文？哦，你在读？你在读 it might be 读。
你在读中文
Yeah, 读中文。Okay, so that's what 中文。
你在读中文
把英文比 Oh no, that's not B. Something else. Oh no, I don't remember. Translate. I had this term, and it stayed the same actually. Simplified did not simplify that one. 把英文no 老师
把英文翻成中文
翻成 Oh, I was close. Yeah, because this looked like Cheng, and then I didn't know this was Fa. Okay. Not sure. So 把英文发成中文。
把英文翻成中文
翻成中文 Oh, it might be fun.
把英文翻成中文
Fun, F-A-N. Yeah, fun. 翻成中文 Oh, no, I wasn't. It was really far apart.
中文出来
出来 Okay. Take out or come out. Okay, I guess we should. 你可以出来吗？你可以出来吗？不要出来。我今天不能出来。We're getting really common phrases, which
出来
is kind of nice, but at the same time, I know there's a lot that could have been.
方
Okay. Compass. That's a compass instead of direction. Or How do you get this? Sword. Oh yeah, so they went with the sword with the lid. Okay, so they did the sword with serves as a compass. A sword with a lid serves as a compass. I can kind of see. And then directions. The character. Feng. Feng? Feng. Feng? I can't. This is Feng. Yi. Yu. Yu? Oh. That's a typo. Feng. Okay. Frodo is in front of the English, is in the chapel. Oh. Frodo is in front of the chapel on a quest to find the sacred compass. Could have been a golden compass moment, but we don't have that character. His map says that the direction to it right ahead as it is stored in the chapel. Frodo braces himself for the joy of completing his quest and walks in a forward direction towards the chapel. I guess he abandoned the one ring to all after all. Bad man. 四方. Oh, I get it. 4 sides. All the sides. 四方. The heck? 东方. 东方. 方便. 方便. Oh, 方便. 方便. 方向. 方向 steering wheel 方向 wheel 方向盘 oh a direction plate oh that makes so much sense 方向 plate a direction a plate for direction a steering wheel it's a plate for directions. That's great. 方向 like regarding a plate regarding directions. 方向方向盘 Oops.
方 出来
I keep saying 上
车上 方 中文
All right, one more lesson set. Let's go. Sure. Matter. Yes. Duolingo called this a thing. And I'm like, yeah. Like, it's a thing, right? It's a matter. It's a thing. But the thing is too generic. A pen? Ain't no way. A heckin' pen? Oh, I guess. Because you can imagine the 3 horizontal stroke is the hand. And you're like, alright. I can see the pen. This is taking a brush. They have the thing for brush, and you have to imagine the hand gripping from the side. Content. Young. Ding. Sure. Can't see it. Kind of looks like tongue. That kind of looks like tongue as well. Oh wait, that's sugar.
是
All right, what is Shrek doing in the bathroom of what is I? What does I stand? Oh wait, I is optional. Hobbit inside the house. Shrek is in the bathroom of the house dealing with an important matter. He has accidentally gotten a large cross. Okay, I sort of see the cross in his mouth. See the mouth that he is trying to get out. He is using a pen. Oh, the pen is brought. Oh, I see. Out of his mouth. It seems this matter will take a while to resolve. I got a pen stuck in his mouth. No, a cross stuck. Interesting. Undertake. Tong? 从事. Okay, 从事. That's traditional. Bad thing. Bad? I don't know. 画室. That looks like. I don't think I've seen that character. Handle affairs. Oh, it's just like也是办事 no. 办 does have elements of 办 in 办事. Sensible is like 东 懂事 to simplify matters. 小事 生事 okay 生事 any of those. Shrek was in the bathroom house
是
dealing with a matter of the cross in the mouth with the pen.
外
With a pen. Magic stick in the evening. Okay, with Walter White in the bathroom of the high school. Oh boy. Walter White is in the bathroom of the high school around evening. Okay, he is trying to get outside the school without going through the main door so nobody see all the chemistry equipment he has stolen for his new meth lab. That's lore accurate. He takes out a magic stick. Okay, now we're not lore. He takes a magic stick from his pocket and lightly interesting a magic stick like a match stick from his light and lightly taps the bath. Oh, he could have just lit garbage can on fire or something, trigger the fire alarm. He takes a magic stick from his pocket and lightly taps the bathroom window. It suddenly turns into a door that he opens to get outside. Oh, it broke character. Why lie? Ooh, why lie? 外人 outsider, quite literally outside person. 外国 oh, I haven't used it this way. 外国 why that why how why how interesting. Why how nickname. Waifu. No, it's just Wai Tao. Waifu. Just realized what I said. Sorry. Wai Tao. Why? Walter White in the bathroom.
外电
Ian. Okay. Not a big difference between simplified and
低
traditional. Diddy Kong. Diddy. Yeah, it's a video game character appeared in Mario and Donkey Kong. Yeah, franchises. Diddy Kong has an interesting beginnings. He's a small monkey that wears a red shirt and a cap. He is known for his agility, his love of race cars and racing it. Donkey Kong's favorite nephew. Ding. 2 dings. This one is 4th. To sting. Ding. Ding. Dian. Yao. Yao. Angling. I don't even know what that means in English. Like to like angling is a fishing. Oh, okay, so it really was referring to the fishing thing. Wait, is this really referring to the fishing thing? They capitalize everything. Huh. Idea.
D.
Okay. Still Dian, but lightning. This is like a kite, right? Oh no, they didn't use a kite? Oh, come on. You're looking at a rice paddy when suddenly lightning strikes it in the middle. Okay, rice paddy practically splitting it in two. The power of... Okay, that's fine. But it looks like a kite for lightning, you know? That's a very American-centric visualization. Kite for lightning. Benjamin Franklin. The light experiment. Got it.
Dian.
Yeah. Alright, Diddy Kong is in the basement of the pawn shop. Going to the bathroom. The problem is that the electricity has gone out. In the pitch black bathroom, he can't find the extra toilet paper rolls. All he hears is the sound of the rain outside. Nailed it. Outside and a bolt of lightning. Got it. Rain and lightning put together. Got electricity. Diddy, electricity came back on, but Diddy still can't find the toilet rolls. Maybe the customer stole them. They are a thrifty bunch after all. King shade. 电子 electronic 电子 电话 grid. I don't know what grid is. 电网 电视 电脑 Ooh, 电脑 got more exotic. Oops.
电
Okie dokie.
电 是 Y D.
Alright, let's do our reviews. Up and away, Adam. What time is it? Oh man. Okay. Ah man. Alright.
分 3不明
Oh no. Not bright. What did they use for not bright? Not bright is unclear? Or is it just undark? Dark. Oh, it's unclear. Okay. Cool.
工作
This was the brush, right?
有人 呢 人口 太
I think I can get away with or excessively. Ah.
咪 时 女人 女朋友 友好
Okay. Excuse me.
西北 用人 子女
I want to say like boys and girls. Hello? Oh, it's children. Okay. Like boys and girls? Children? Honey? Wait, is this still... Oh no, they used a different word for this. Oh, I remember now. Muscular arm.
波 水果 昨日 人手 大衣
Top coat. Sorry, inside joke from yesterday.
雨衣 东北 爸爸
出门
出门奶奶天60
Wait. I need some mnemonics to check this tone. Hulk is in the office building. In the office, yes.
火车梯下小雨3月开
wait. Oh, I wrote it backwards. The O and the U swapped around. I meant to type do. Instead I wrote do. Full door. Wouldn't have been just didn't. Should have been DU.
都多
Oh, is it this one? 男子
男子那他人
No, wait. 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 How did this work? Still the same, right?
山之
Dang it, I slipped. Slipped. That's a typo. I think I'll accept the typo. Man, you really get into it. Things just go. Gotta go. Review the stuff. So rapid. I can see the dopamine flowing. Dopamine epic. What was DI stand for? Diddy. Yeah, Diddy Kong. This is compass. And lightning. lots of vocabulary words today, but not too much sound or component. I think we've covered. Oh, I would say quite a lot of the sounds are already covered now. So it's kind of getting into grooves now of blasting words and characters. We're hitting our stride. See. So we have direction. I'll do the definition. Electricity. Side. Matter. To return to come back. I think come back is back. Because of come a lie. 游泳哦上午 morning 中间 middle 出生杯子 up 中午 noon 看来 or to see seems 在乡 reborn. Yeah, so far most of the vocabulary I know. What do I how many vocabulary words? I think I know of like 2000 vocabulary words ish. Still eating pretty still largely reviewed when it comes to vocabulary words. I think reading the sentences have introduced more vocabulary, and reading the examples have introduced a lot of new vocabulary that I look forward to. 出来 Oops. To come out. 车上 are 进来 come in 中文 Chinese, right? Chinese language. Language is important, largely because Chinese is both a language and a person. In contrary to a lot of people who go around doing the self-correcting reverse discrimination thing, where when someone say like, oh, you don't learn Chinese isn't a language, and it's like, well, Mandarin, they're gonna say like, you mean Mandarin, and I'm like, no, I mean Chinese, because not all Mandarin is Mandarin. Fujianese is not necessarily Mandarin. Chinese is a collective of dialects, so it gets a little bit more complicated, but it's kind of funny that discussion happens a lot. It does happen quite a lot, and especially when it's when someone speaks American English, whoever listens is more likely to correct. Like, this is observation, obviously, anecdotal observation, but if you speak American English, you are more likely to be corrected about English usage, which ironically, maybe not ironically, I actually say Chinese now more often than I say Mandarin, because when I say I speak Chinese, I'm not simply referring to Mandarin. I'm also referring to Fujianese, which if you say Fujianese is Mandarin, that would be very, very misleading. Right. Or you could say Mandarin and Fujianese if you want it to be pedantic. So that would be the opposite of what the person is trying to do. That person is trying to be pedantic by saying, oh, Chinese is not a language. Chinese is a people. It's like the funny thing about that is what I could say in reverse is you don't understand English as well as you think you do. So it's like a person twisting and educating another person on English when that English itself, the nuance of that English term, means something else. So it's kind of like a competition of who's being more pedantic. Like if someone corrects you and say, well, Chinese is not a language, well, it is. Chinese is both a language and a group of people. That's one of the idiosyncrasies of English. But when someone corrects you on the usage of that English, it also ironically demonstrates how much less English they know, because it's either or. So if someone is proficient in English and also know the history of the Chinese language, right, 中文, then they would say nothing. They'd be like, oh, I know what you mean, as opposed to like being pedantic. That's kind of, in my opinion, one of those funny situations where is this person competent or they're making it in a statement that's due to incompetence, right? Like, oh, I know more English than you, so I'm going to correct your quote unquote American English. It's usually American English. So, and I've had this conversation multiple times. Also, personally, I had acquaintances in which they are the ones to correct the other person. Like, oh, no, you mean Mandarin. I'm like, I know, I sit there and I'm just thinking like, boy, it like stops a conversation dead as well. Like where someone genuinely is curious about your background and they're like, oh, hey, do you speak Chinese? And then, you know, another person being pedantic would say like, I don't speak a nationality. And I'm like, I speak, you mean Mandarin? And then immediately I just think, wow, that is a very lack of emotional intelligence, especially stopping dead when a stranger is interested in asking you a question. That's my personal take on things. It did end the conversation. Like all I can think about, like a lot of things I can think about from the other person's perspective is like, dang, I was just gonna ask you if you can speak some Chinese, but never mind if you're gonna be like that. Like these things happen all the time actually when you hop into a Twitch stream or like read video comments. You end conversations. Like so many conversations deal with being pedantic without emotional intelligence a lot of times. This one is a particular particular a very particular one. And now that I'm, you know, Hanyu, right? Hanyu, 中文, 普通话, right? 普通话. There are very expressions of referring to the language with different nuances. However, in English, you need another modifier. So when someone says, hey, do you speak the Chinese language? The other person is going to say, well, Chinese is not a language. It's like, oh, well, the Chinese language is a language. It's Chinese. It's the language of Chinese people. So I kind of like that they're defining this, right? It does make it more clear in the future when you're saying 中人 or 中国人, right? 中国人 as opposed to 中文, right? 中国人 would be Chinese too. However, if one was trying to be tricky or being redundant or like more harsh, it would be Chinese. 中文 is Chinese, and 中国人 is still Chinese in English, like colloquially, right? If you were Americanizing it. But using like that as an excuse to target people, feels like you might as well not talk to that person. It's kind of one of those things like, how do you say don't talk to me without saying don't talk to me? You correct someone when they ask a question immediately by assuming they don't understand. That's one of those things that, ugh, very common. What should I say? How should I say this? Symptom of hyperobjectivity online. It's another plug or digression for hyperobjectivity. Just because you're right or you're technically right, makes you less and less approachable as a conversational. Like, if that's how you want to introduce yourself, then I hope that the people understand that you have less and less people who want to talk to you. Right? Your first introduction is you're being argumentative. Feels bad, man. How does it work when it comes to the streamer life? I would say 50-50. You take a coin flip. Lots of times people introduce themselves by correcting you. As in like, oh, hey, hello. And then that person's gone already. Wanted to know that they're right. Weird thoughts about this. There's plenty of other examples, but understanding nationalities, country nationalities and language names in English. That's a bit of a recurring meme. So let's write the reads for these. Right? Yes. Oh no. What was it? Frodo in the bathroom? Frodo is in the bathroom of the chapel. What is he doing? Using a compass? Using a compass to find the direction of something with a sword? No. Finding the compass of... Oh, finding the direction to the compass. Like a special compass. Was it bathroom? I think it was bathroom. Or is it outside of the chapel? Oh no. Outside the chapel. Like, that doesn't sound right. How would he be looking for it in the bathroom? I should be writing this out soon. This was my typo. Wall. Kitty was... Yeah. Bathroom. Right? Yes. The toilet paper rolls. Why? True. Okay, let's do these. Alright. I don't think I need to do the bottom one anymore. Kind of very cumbersome. But I already set the read while I was translating. Usually I prefer to just say the read as opposed to translating. Right? Okay, so let's do these ones. We have Frodo outside chapel looking for the direction compass. using the compass to look for the direction. I don't know which order. For the direction of the compass. Using a compass to look for another compass. What? It's close enough. Wall. What is that? You? Dumbledore is outside of the office. Oh, this is the office building. Office building, counting. Like, you remove the side of the wall to count how many people, office workers. 店, yeah, Diddy Kong is in the bathroom. Handwriting. Diddy Kong is in the bathroom of the pawn shop. Away out of the rain. I mean, the electricity was out because it was raining outside with the lightning. And when the electricity came back, he's still looking for toilet paper roll. I think the toilet paper rolls were what gave it away. Good old Walter White was in the bathroom of the high school, trying to sneak out without being noticed. Sneak outside without being noticed. It was in the evening, right? It was in the evening, and he used his magic stick to conjure up a door which breaks lore. Okay. And then we have Shrek was in the bathroom of the house, trying to deal with a cross in his mouth. Cross mouth by using a pen. And this has become a grievous matter. Okay. Guess we can go over this again. 回来有用有用有用有用降午中间出生杯子中午看来带伤出来车上进来中文 right. And there you have it. We're done. We added another fun little digression. Oh, maybe we should do. I feel like I want to like draw like a banner, some sort of representation. It's like, hey, digression in progress, or it's time to spill. It's time to spill the tea or something. Not that type. Make graph go up. Looks like the curriculum got updated yesterday. Kevin is still hard at work. Yep, still doing the 2-week updates. It's almost like Kevin decided every 11 to 14 days he would add something. That's really work. Look at this graph. Look at this beauty. Is this how far back we started learning new? Has it really been this long since we changed the workload? No. It's because these things are just papering up. It hasn't been a month, right? Today's day 21. It's only been 3 weeks. 3 weeks. It'd be nice if I could see or like click on this. What is in here? I made one error. That was more of a typo. Yeah, this is a beautiful graph. All right. Well, that's it. That's a wrap. Hope, yeah, see you next time. I hope I can get the mic problem under control. If not, it looks like I'm gonna be in the market for a new mic. That's kind of tough because I already budgeted so many things. We'll see. Maybe I should go out on a poll, make a list of mics and get. I don't mind sounding a little bit more bassy, so there's a chance for a lower. Maybe I could try a dynamic mic. I haven't owned a dynamic mic yet. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Sorry about the audio today. I'm sure there's gonna be like some sizzling and cutting and peaking somewhere because I had to amplify my mic. Something happened with the feed. The feed is not as powerful as it was, so I think it might be a rip for my mic, a 12-year-old mic. So more on that later. Thanks again for chilling. If you were here, I love the conversation. Again, I'd be throwing happy dollars from alluding to yesterday's digression. I have happy dollars, I invest, right? If you ask a question, I'll give you an essay. If you're here for the essay, I'll give you a story, right? That's what this is about. Hopefully that normalizes something. Not here to exchange pleasantries. I know lots of people prefer that way. That's cool. Say hi, I'll say hi back. But the deep discussions that keep me going, I wouldn't be streaming otherwise. So as a reminder, no need to apologize. I've already determined I was going to allocate time, right? Anyways, thanks for hanging out. If you ever stop by, I would love to hear stories, little anecdotes about your take on things, and encourage a polite but mutually respectful way of exchanging ideas. Definitely worth investing in people that are able to. Until next time, if you're gonna watch this, 谢谢, right? And until next time, 下次再聊吧, right? Talk to you guys next time. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care, folks. Bye bye.